Story 1. There was a car rental company that installed speed monitoring devices on their cars and charged you every time you went over the speed limit. I want to say Avis. It didn't last long. Edit. Acme was the name of the company. This was back in 2001. There's a New York Times article about it. Story 2. In Canada, the grocery market is pretty much completely owned by 4 companies, which means they try to get away with a lot of nonsense since there's virtually no competition. One of them, Loblaws, had a long-standing practice of putting 50% off stickers on items that were about to expire or produce that was damaged. Recently, they decided to drop this 50% off to 30%. I don't think they even announced anything. I'm pretty sure word just got out when employees received the new 30% off stickers. The backlash in Canada was enormous. Loblaws is widely disliked right now for using the lack of competition to increase grocery prices, and this was just another infuriating greedy move from them. In light of the backlash, the company reversed course and kept the 50% off. Story 3. OnlyFans said they were going to ban sexually explicit content, and that had to be one of the stupidest things I have ever seen. They reversed that decision pretty quickly, as was expected. Story 4. At one point, when bourbon exploded in popularity, largely due to growth in the Southeast Asian market, Maker's Mark was faced with not having enough product to meet projected demand, since it takes quite a while to produce. They announced they were going to slightly lower the alcohol percentage of their flagship product to stretch the supply. This idea went over like a lead balloon and was crushed almost immediately. Story 5. Cricut is a brand of cutting machine used for a variety of crafting purposes. It has existed in many forms, but current machines utilize proprietary Cricut Design Space software, along with a machine and various blade options and accessories to cut complex shapes out of a wide variety of materials. They are most commonly used in the crafting world for cutting vinyl to make custom t-shirts, tumbler cups, ornaments, and more. Users can purchase a Cricut Design Space premium subscription for $10 per month, which provides access to a vast library of pre-made assets such as fonts, shapes, and pre-designed projects. Since the software relies on scalable vector graphics files, and those cannot be created within Cricut Design Space, the subscription is suitable for non-tech-savvy casual crafters who do not know how or do not feel like designing and converting their own scalable vector graphics in a separate program. If you are savvy enough to make your own scalable vector graphics, or if you buy or download them from other sources, you can import them into Cricut Design Space and use them. You just cannot create them within Design Space. A couple of years back, Cricut announced that a paid premium subscription would now be required for all users who want to import more than 10 scalable vector graphics files into Design Space per month. The majority of Cricut users who create projects to make money were the type of users who created their own scalable vector graphics, and depending on complexity, one project could require 10 uploads. For all but the most casual users, this was basically Cricut forcing them into a subscription that they did not need. Additionally, Design Space is subpar software. It is buggy, it is designed for simplicity over efficiency, and certain functions barely work at all. Since you cannot use any other software for Cricut machines, there is no real reason for them to bother making it good, so they do not. The backlash was so instant, so intense, and so immense that Cricut quickly retracted their decision. However, the whole incident caused a significant mistrust of the brand in general, which was already known for extremely overpriced accessories and terrible software. And Cricut's reputation has been damaged in the crafting community ever since. Story 6. The pasty tax. In the United Kingdom, the government tried to introduce higher taxes on hot food from bakeries like sausage rolls, Cornish pasties, and similar items. The country essentially rioted until the government reversed the decision. There were protests outside Downing Street and smear campaigns against food companies perceived to be complicit. It was a wild time but quite a proud moment for the country when it was reversed. Imagine what we could do if we cared this much about other issues. Story 7. JCPenney tried a whole tactic of, "We will not have any sales or coupons anymore. Our prices will just always be low." Instead, sales tanked, the stock prices dropped into single digits, stores ended up closed left and right, and JCPenney barely exists anymore. Story 8. Through much of the 20th century, the biggest beer brand in the world was Schlitz. Budweiser was a distant second and gaining ground. Schlitz's new CEO, son of the long-standing CEO, decided the way to beat Budweiser was to make beer with a shorter brewing time. He ordered the formula changed to corn syrup from malted barley and added a new yeast to cut brewing time. Overnight, consumers started complaining that the new beer was flat, cloudy, and full of flakes of yeast, which turned off the loyal following. They started recalling the beer, which left no beer to sell to the marketplace. Schlitz plunged from the #1 brand to obscurity. Anheuser-Busch could not have come up with a better way to sabotage their competitor. Story 9. Dungeons & Dragons is owned by Wizards of the Coast, which is owned by Hasbro. I am not sure if it was directly Wizards of the Coast or if it was Hasbro, but they wanted to change the licensing for Dungeons & Dragons. This was going to negatively affect thousands of streamers, podcasts, other types of small companies, and startups that were doing things related to Dungeons & Dragons. The backlash from the community was huge. People canceled their Dungeons & Dragons Beyond subscriptions on a very large scale, one of the few ways they were making money. Many popular Dungeons & Dragons podcasts and streams openly denounced the idea and started to talk about using Dungeons & Dragons' biggest competitor instead, Pathfinder. They eventually made a poorly executed statement that did not help, and a couple of weeks later, did a complete reversal and apology. This was also maybe a year ago, if not more recent. Story 10. The game engine Unity introduced a per-install runtime fee, meaning anytime someone installed a Unity game you made, Unity would charge you. Details as to how this would be tracked and billed, how multiple installs per user or machine would be handled, how malicious installs would be prevented, and how installs from prepaid deals like Game Pass would be counted were fully absent. Unity is one of the two most popular non-proprietary game engines by far, and favored by smaller developers, who could lose all their profits with this arrangement. This alone outraged the entire game development community, but the week of shifting explanations and rules changed on the fly really put gas on the fire. Developers began preparing to move away from Unity, the stock price crashed, and massive partners like Microsoft appeared blindsided. In the end, Unity had to retract the policy and create a new one where developers could choose between the runtime fee and a tiered percentage cut, the normal way. The CEO had to step down. The company laid off 25% of their employees, although that was likely due to the same overgrowth that caused them to try the runtime fee in the first place. It was a massive disaster for the company, and I would say their reputation has not recovered. Story 11. When the COVID-19 lockdown started hitting, the city of Denver announced that all liquor stores and marijuana dispensaries would be shuttered for the duration. Hordes of people scrambled to these shops and formed huge lines to stock up. 2 hours later, the city announced that no, those shops would not be forced to close, as they were deemed essential services. Story 12. Cadbury announced they were going to change their formula to include palm oil in their chocolate manufacturing process, and there was a huge uproar. Lots of people boycotted them or threatened to boycott them if palm oil was used, as it is incredibly environmentally damaging. Cadbury walked it back shortly after and never mentioned switching the formula again. Story 13. In 2010, gaming company Activision Blizzard, who ran World of Warcraft among other things, proposed to put players' real names on their forum posts. This did not go well at all. Doxing of children to make a point was involved. They did not go through with their terrible plan. This incident is usually referred to as the Real ID fiasco among players who were around at the time. Story 14. I remember when Bank of America wanted to roll out a $5 charge for using a debit card. People got really upset and were leaving the bank, to the point where they decided to cancel the plan. Story 15. Kind of minor one, but in the early 2000s Marvel had started a great run of Fantastic Four by Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo. It got huge critical acclaim and good sales, and it was clear the duo wanted a long run on the book. About a year in, Marvel president Bill Jemas announced that their run would wrap up after only 18 issues, with the next team going for a feel closer to the upcoming Fox Fantastic Four 2005 movie. Everyone was upset. After a lot of online debate, Jemas backtracked and said that the Waid and Wieringo run would continue, and the version closer to the film would be a second Fantastic Four title. The Waid and Wieringo run ended up being about 3 years. Story 16. When Sun Chips released their new eco-friendly bag, it was so loud anytime it crinkled. They had to change the bags back very quickly due to the backlash. Story 17. In 2014, Apple automatically added U2's new Songs of Innocence album to the libraries of every iTunes customer for free. More than 500 million customers. If you had auto-downloads enabled on your iTunes, the album was automatically downloaded to your devices. People hated this. As a result, Apple created a web page dedicated to deleting the album from people's accounts. Story 18. Papa John's was complaining that he would have to add 10 cents to the price of a pizza if he were forced to provide healthcare to his full-time employees. People were disgusted, sales dropped, and stock declined. This was only one of a series of misguided, tone-deaf, racist, and ignorant statements by the chief executive officer. The guy just couldn't stay quiet. John Schnatter was removed as chief executive officer. Many customers never returned. Story 19. Netflix tried to spin off their DVD service into Quickster, separate from its fledgling streaming service in 2011. The stock dropped 80% in part due to that plan, and it was shelved. On a side note, billionaire investor Carl Icahn bought 11% of Netflix stock at the lows for $650 million. He was going to agitate to sell the company, but the stock quickly increased. He sold it at a five-fold gain over the objection of his son. It would have been worth about $25 to $30 billion today. Story 20. Pretty much every Australian persuaded the snack brand Shapes to revert back to their original recipe after changing it. So the new one only lasted a few weeks on the shelves. These crackers are a national delicacy, and the new flavors genuinely tasted bad. Really great to have seen a nation band together for the greater good. Story 21. BMW had plans to charge a monthly subscription fee for heated seats and adaptive cruise control. When you ordered the car, you could choose to pay for those to be installed or not. However, they would install them anyway, and you could pay a monthly fee afterward if you changed your mind. Story 22. Electronic Arts received huge backlash for adding loot boxes into the modern Battlefront 2 game. They actually removed them, but there is a remnant still in the game. When you unlock new guns or cosmetics, it uses the loot box animation to show you what you unlocked. There is no way to get loot boxes in the game, and the currency you unlock can directly unlock cosmetics now. Story 23. Like 13 years ago, Blizzard announced that people posting on their forums were going to use their real names instead of their usernames. The backlash was immense. Story 24. Tangential. I think Wendy's branded this horribly. My first thought was, well, I guess I'll never go to Wendy's since I'll never know what things will cost before I get there. But if they marketed it as 20% off during off-peak hours or 30% after 9:30 p.m. or something, I'd probably think of going there if I needed an early or late meal. Actual surge pricing for fast food is dumb. When a school bus of kids show up on a sports or band trip, are they going to raise the prices for all of them? Specific days or times with higher or lower prices seem more viable. Story 25. Oh no. Wendy's did not take it back. Their sneaky marketers just changed how it's perceived. Rather than increasing prices during high demand, they're discounting prices in times of low demand. Sounds better, right? What's the problem? Hey, you ever notice a store is having a sale with huge discounts and do the math? Then notice they increased the original prices? That's right, sneaky marketing. It's the exact same thing presented differently. Its initiative to add digital menu boards to certain stores would allow Wendy's to offer discounts to customers more easily, particularly in the slower times of day, the company said. Story 26. In 2013, Specialized Bicycles went after a small Canadian bike shop, Café Roubaix, for their use of the name Roubaix, which Specialized said it had trademarked. It immediately blew up into a public relations disaster for the bike company. Unfortunately for Specialized, the story broke on a Friday, and apparently everyone at Specialized hibernates on weekends, so for more than 2 days there was silence from Specialized while the criticism was flying. After a week or so of facing backlash on social media, the owner of Specialized announced that they would graciously allow the shop to use the name. It was soon revealed that Specialized did not own the trademark to the name after all. They licensed it from another company. So not only were they trying to bully a small business owner, but they were also being dishonest the whole time. And it was not the first time they pulled this sort of thing. Personally, for this and other reasons, they are a brand I want nothing to do with. Story 27. Back in the 1970s, the Kentucky River flooded in the Appalachian region around Harlan, Kentucky. The area is full of impoverished people, and a huge number of people lost everything from flooding. Hill's Department Stores was a regional chain of variety stores similar to Walmart. They had a store in the area that flooded. So what to do with all of the store's water-damaged stock? They decided to put it all on trucks, ship it to Lexington, and hold a tent sale to get rid of it. They ran ads announcing the sale, saying, "Our loss is your gain." Well, the public told them pretty quickly what they should have done with the damaged stock. They quickly canceled the sale, shipped everything back to Harlan, and donated it to the relief effort.